This is a story about a jacket and one of the worst teams in baseball history.
Boy, goosebumps all over here.
Until they weren't.
These fans are going wild. What an explosive ball club this is. If you don't come out here tomorrow to watch this doubleheader, you're missing excitement.
A late 1970s Chicago White Sox team-issued jacket, to be exact. But what was this thing doing on eBay? In London? And whose was it? I didn't know it at the time, but that was a question that would take me halfway across the world. But this isn't just a story about an old jacket. It's about a struggling city, a team of underdogs and fans who never gave up, all leading to one wild late 70s summer of belly dancing clowns, home runs, hitmen, and hope.
When the fans are backing the White Sox the way they are, no one's used to that in this town, and it's very important to a team's success, I think.
So here we are, back in Chicago, chasing a story that started 48 years ago, and a player that might just be looking for his old jacket.
How you doing, my man?
Right now, the city is losing 20,000 jobs a year and gaining 9,000 welfare clients. It's going to take some pretty strong medicine to keep Chicago alive, but so far it looks as though we just don't have the nerve to swallow it.
In the early 1970s, the Southside and its baseball team were on the ropes. For much of the 20th century, the Southside was the city's beating industrial heart. Its factories pumping out everything from steel beams to Pullman rail cars to meat products that doubled as dinner, and a horror story. It's the kind of place where you, your dad, and his dad probably all had the same job, and at least one of them was missing a finger.
But times had changed, and manufacturing jobs were slowly leaking out of America's Midwest. Factories closed overnight, leaving a working-class community without any work.
If the American dream had a backdoor exit, this was it. And it pumped out right onto 95th Street.
And in the middle of it all was Comiskey Park and the Chicago White Sox.
On the green. A two-run homer for Dick Allen. Wow.
Built in 1910, the White Sox Comiskey Park was a cathedral of concrete.
And by the 1970s, it had the same charm as the steel mills. Loud, aging, and somehow always a little bit damp.
Flanked on all sides by a clanking rail yard, the Dan Ryan Expressway, and the Central Manufacturing District, the White Sox were an extension of the city they called home. It was a battered baseball church for the blue-collar fan.
My uncles and my mom grew up, you know, he would take them to old Comiskey Park. They would load them up in the station wagon and take them down to Dan Ryan. I always remember, like, my uncles saying they knew they were getting close when they could smell the stockyards, you know, like, just, this is where you are, you know, like, the White Sox are just part of this, like, working class community.
Proudly the underdog, the White Sox were always the second baseball team in America's second city.
Bangs onto the plate, and here they go.
I feel like you're not going to find too many Cubs fans that are, you know, south of the loop. North, you're probably going to get some Sox fans, but I don't think there's a single Cubs fan on the south side. Wrigley Field is in the middle of, like, a very popular, trendy part of the city, and, you know, it can be another bar on Clark Street or Addison, you know, next to every other bar. But I feel like you really have to be a dedicated baseball fan and a White Sox fan to sit through a White Sox game.
If their rival Northside Cubs were champagne brunches and ivy-covered fences, the Sox were hot dogs with no bun. And the hot dogs were cold, always sighing about next year. So not much has changed around here.
And in the 1970s, the Cubs weren't good either. But they were the Northside's lovable losers, playing romantic baseball on an ivy-covered field. And the White Sox were just bad. With the exit of their lone superstar Dick Allen in 1974, the White Sox fell apart. With the baseball deteriorating as quickly as the neighborhood around the stadium, nobody wanted to come to Comiskey Park. The Southside's last sacred thing, the Chicago White Sox, were hanging on by a thread. And just like the shuttered factories and boarded up manufacturing plants, they too were looking for the first cheap bus ticket out of town.
In 1975, the Sox were out of money, out of time, and almost out of town. They needed a savior. And just in time, in walked former owner Bill Veeck, who hobbled in on a wooden leg with a pocket full of stunts and enough baseball magic to keep the lights on at Comiskey just a little bit longer.
Once more. Tell her I'm fine, thank you. Beat him another one.
Bill Veeck wasn't rich, Not the kind of rich that sits in skyboxes or signs blank checks with gold pens. No, he was something else. Something from a different time. The last of the great American carnival men. A showman, a hustler. A guy who ran a major league team from the back room of a bar, buried somewhere deep in the beer-soaked ribs of Comiskey Park. Veeck lived in the same bars as his fans, rode the same cabs, even had his name in the phone book. When the team lost, which was often, he'd buy the first round. And when they won, which they did occasionally, he'd buy the second. Veeck was already famous for his promotional stunts. Having owned the team for 2 years at the end of the 50s, he was back in town to help the Sox and the Southside believe again. Because if there was two things Veeck cared about, it was people and baseball. And so Veeck set about doing what he did best, getting people to show up for the worst show in town. And wouldn't you know it? Things started to change.
It was kind of always fun to go to the park. Even if the ball club was not too good, you could go there and there'd be something going on, somebody parachuting out of the sky or belly dancers at home plate or some crazy thing, you know. But it was just enjoyable.
Broke, stubborn, missing half a leg, Veeck didn't let a tight budget stop him from turning Comiskey into a carnival on a nightly basis.
The White Sox quickly became the least interesting thing at Comiskey Park, with each game preceded by an array of bizarre Veeck promotions. Belly dancers, limbo competitions, sack races, clowns, mimes, witches, a world record attempt for the most simultaneous players of the kazoo. Players competed against fans in box stacking, Veeck's famous exploding scoreboard shot fireworks into the sky after every home run, and organ music drifted over the stands as White Sox legend Nancy Faust stirred the crowd after every inning. There was even a shower, so the bleacher drunks could cool off between innings like some kind of municipal water park for the half cut.
And then there were the uniforms.
In March 1976, the White Sox held a fashion show at the Tremont Hotel to showcase their new jerseys. They had huge disco collars and were worn untucked, pajama style, and the pants options included a baseball first, shorts, which they did wear for 3 games in 1976 before being retired because, well, this looked like it hurt.
The shorts era was just that. Short. And the baseball decisions, they were just as unique.
With free agency having just hit Major League Baseball, player salaries were on the rise. Veeck knew he couldn't compete with the Yankees or Dodgers, offering top-tier contracts to the league's stars, and so he rented them.
I mean, you've seen Moneyball. This was baseball on layaway.
1-year contracts for players at the end of their current deal, and when that year in Chicago was up, move on for a big payday elsewhere. The 1976 White Sox were a team of 1-year wonders, misfits and castoffs. But doesn't that sound awfully familiar? A city on its last legs, a baseball team at death's door, and nobody could have predicted what was to unfold in the hot Chicago summer of 1977. So our Midnight Blue Sox jacket was a product of Bill Veeck's wild sartorial imagination. But here's a question. How do we know our jacket is the real deal? How do we prove this thing actually graced the dugouts and batting cages of old Comiskey Park? Well, it's the 1970s. We're in a time before sports merchandising went corporate. Starters still trying to get a foothold in baseball and wouldn't turn the satin bomber into a full-blown fashion movement until the early 80s. This is pre-sportswear boom, a time when jackets were made for players, not fans. Mostly. Because I did find a retail version of our White Sox jacket, but let's get into the forensic stuff. Clue number 1, the Rawlings tag. On the store-bought version, it's in the neck, labeled with a simple size like large. Ours? Stitched in the hemline like other team-issue jackets of the era, and instead of a size, it's got a chest measurement, 42, built to fit a specific body, not whoever got a hold of the Sears catalogue. Clue number 2, the lettering. The arched Tuscan Chicago on the back isn't cheap. Compare it to the fan version where the back lettering is, well, let's say it's economical. And the smoking gun. I'd like to thank a close personal friend of mine, Mike Thompson, Cardinals pitcher 1973 to 74, because I found his jacket too. And here it is. Same Rawlings build, same style, rounded collar. I mean, he's even wearing it on his 1974 card. And if that's not enough, he wrote his name in it. Thanks, Mike. So our jacket is team issued. But to who?
They had to go 15 rounds. These guys have been going for about 15 minutes.
After Veeck's return in 1975, the Sox ditched their old duds and went full disco. In came the 1902 Tuscan font, out went buttons. In came collars, shorts and sleeves. The look held until 1982 when the team flipped to the Carlton Fisk Sox block era. So we're looking at this window, 1976 to 1982. But back to the jacket. Inside, on the tag, faint but still visible, a handwritten 12, jersey number, which leaves us with two names, Eric Soderholm and Jim Morrison. Rawlings changed their collar type in the early 80s from rounded to pointed, right around the time Tony La Russa took charge. And our jacket? Rounded collar, early style, which means Eric Soderholm.
Tonight, we begin a series of profiles of Cubs and Sox players, beginning with Sox third baseman Eric Soderholm. Soderholm missed all of last season with a knee injury, and it was feared his career was over. But he signed with the Sox as a free agent, and now he's enjoying the best year of his life.
As the White Sox geared up for the '77 season, no one expected them to do anything. To bolster their squad of journeymen, Veeck signed Richie Zisk from the Pirates, Oscar Gamble, whose job in the Yankees right field had been taken away by prize free agent Reggie Jackson, and discount third baseman Eric Soderholm. Eric had spent most of his career with the Twins, but had fallen down a storm cellar in Minnesota and tore up his knee. He hadn't played baseball since 1975, but he was cheap and available, so Veeck signed him up. Starting in snowy Toronto in their first ever series against the newly minted Blue Jays, the Sox dropped 2 of the first 3, surely the start of another long year. But then they came home, and something clicked. Creaky old Comiskey Park began to rumble. The bats came alive. They won 5 straight. Somewhere up in the booth, improvising Nancy Faust tapped out "Na na na na, hey hey goodbye," and the crowd picked it up, like they'd been singing it for years. Veeck's promotions kept rolling, the wins kept stacking, and the park began to fill up. The Sox discount lineup found themselves at the top of the league batting averages. In the stands, 35,000 Southsiders with cheap beer in their veins belting out "Na na na na, hey hey goodbye" at full volume in April. The summer of 1977 had begun. This team of castoffs, one-year renter players and injured misfits, captured the imagination of the South Side. They were underdogs. They came out of collapse, out of boarded-up factories and layoffs and missing paychecks. They came out of a city that had every reason to stop believing. Suddenly, Comiskey Park was full. Fans printed their own Southside Hitmen shirts with newspaper stencils. It was a nod to Al Capone and the South Side's bootlegging prohibition past, but also, it's just about all the team could do. They couldn't field, they couldn't pitch. Boy, could they hit. Oscar Gamble launched 31 baseballs into the upper deck. Zisk followed suit with 30 homers of his own. Lamar Johnson? Veeck had him sing the national anthem before hitting 2 homers in the same game. And Eric Soderholm, unsure if he would ever play baseball again, took his chance on the South Side.
Fastball, long drive, left field, way back, it's out of here! Soderholm has just hit his 14th home run. Boy, they're really hollering. They want Soderholm to come out and he shakes his head, and the crowd is going wild.
Every homer came with a curtain call. The fans demanded it. They wouldn't stop screaming until the player popped out of the dugout and tipped his cap. And the scoreboard? It exploded so often you'd think it was a fireworks factory with season tickets. The Hitmen t-shirts somehow found their way into the dugout and the team rallied behind the nickname. The magic was fragile, but for one beautiful, bat-swinging, soul-singing summer, the White Sox led the American League.
These fans are going wild. What an explosive ball club this is. If you don't come out here tomorrow to watch this doubleheader, you're missing excitement.
And then came Kansas City, and they hated the Hitmen. They hated the music, hated the swagger, hated the curtain calls, hated the fans dancing in the aisles and giving standing ovations to White Sox batters who struck out. The Royals swept the Sox in Kansas City, rattled off 16 straight wins, trotting around the bases, mocking the Sox by tipping their caps after home runs. And our Hitmen ran out of steam. When all was said and done, the Sox finished second, and the Royals went to the dance.
And still, when the final out was recorded in a meaningless game against Seattle in October, the fans refused to leave. They stayed in Comiskey Park for over an hour, desperate to cling to the last breath of a Southside summer that made them believe.
Boy, goosebumps all over here. These fans are going wild.
So there I was, in the city where it all happened 48 years later, my first time in Chicago.
All this wind! Now I know what they call it the Big Apple.
I kind of promised the White Sox I was going to find Eric and give him his jacket back. I just wasn't sure how I was going to actually do it. Walking around Rate Field, there weren't many reminders of those '77 Hitmen. Old Comiskey Park, now a parking lot. A mural tucked away at the furthest reaches of the uppermost deck. No Zisk, Gamble or Soderholm jerseys to be found at the concession stands. But there were some signs of Bill Veeck, if you looked hard enough. After all, it was City Connect promotion night, which felt quite fitting. So I turned to the internet, where I found this article from the Chicago Sun-Times, which mentioned Eric's third act as a meditation teacher and life coach at a facility called Soderholm, out in the Chicago suburbs, a half-hour drive. Turns out trying to locate Eric was relatively easy. Trying to convince him that I wasn't going to scam him was the hard part. I mean, how would you feel if a British man told you he was flying across the world to turn up at your doorstep with one of your old jackets? Fair enough. Throughout my trip to Chicago, our messaging was spotty at best, and he eventually agreed to meet me on the morning of my final day in the city. Admittedly, not the best planning, but there we were, in the Soderholm parking lot, praying that Eric had received my text earlier in the morning and merely forgotten to reply. Either way, we were going in, jacket in bag, hoping that Eric was in there. He wasn't. So, defeated, we decided to check out the Soderholm Garden, the final destination in our journey from London to Chicago to return Eric's jacket. A Zen garden with swans, Buddhas, and an encouragement tree. It was an odd ending, but an ending nonetheless.
You got the Nikes on.
When suddenly...
How you doing, my man?
I
did. I texted you.
You texted me at 8:30, but it's like I was in deep meditation, and it's like I don't turn my phone off.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what time we were going to start this thing. But so you still base here, but even with your accent, for some reason I thought you were like.
No, I'm from London, so I flew here for this. To give you your jacket back.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you got the Southside Hitmen shirt on?
The 1977
wow,
Southside Hitmen.
That was a popular shirt, I remember that.
Eric wanted to do the interview outside with the swans, but it started to rain, so we went inside.
Yeah, should we go in? Yeah.
But it was my t-shirt that he was most interested in.
I had one. I had one for a long time. I don't think I have it anymore. Everybody grabbed one. Oh, that's perfect. Grab one. And what that did was this, what we were just talking about, the mental part of the game, everybody on the team said, yeah, that collective consciousness now all of a sudden fueled the Bad News Bears that were all of a sudden had a 5-game lead in August. Look at that team. I'm at third base with bad knees. Alan Bannister had rotor cuff surgery. And George Orders at second, but he couldn't turn to double play. You got Ralph Garr in left. It's like everybody holds their breath. Richie Ziskin right. He had no range. And here we are with a bunch of Bad News Bears put together by Bill Veeck. And we got a 5-game lead in August. Right. And nobody can believe it. Stadium's packed every night. I can't tell you how many times we went to the ballpark. Oh, batting practice has been canceled because we got a trapeze artist out there doing somersaults or whatever, you know? So, but that was Bill Veeck. He knew that he wanted to give the fans their money's worth. I mean, that's who he was, you know? And so you got to be okay with that. If you don't like it, go watch some other team, you know? Yeah. But the people here in Chicago loved it, you know? Curtain calls, oh, that was big. Yeah. That was huge. Once it happened and he stand by and he went like this, the 50,000 people erupted. They stood, they would not sit down. Even though we couldn't win it anymore, we were out of it, they still wanted that. But this t-shirt and the momentum, you identify with belief systems and that energy. You just get involved in it, and it's part of what life's fun. That's what's fun about life. We get involved in something we're passionate about or excited about, and we identify with that.
So I found this jacket in London, and there's a 12 written very faintly in pen on the label with the Tuscan lettering on the back. I don't know if you remember this at all.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was obviously cold in Chicago, and these were the jackets that we wore to help us with that situation. So where is this 12 you're talking about?
Do you want to try it on? See if the glove fits?
All right. If the glove fits, we must acquit. Well, I think that's a fit.
There we go. Come on.
I think that's a fit. Well, nice.
I'm getting better, and I'm having a great year. I'm afraid to take the dang thing off now. So I'll wear it forever as long as things keep going well, I guess. Ball players aren't superstitious.
I don't get to keep this, I don't think.
If you want it, it is yours.
Really?
100%. It's your history.
Oh, thanks, man.
Of course.
Hugh, that's wonderful. I appreciate that a lot.
He is one of the reasons for the Sox success so far, and he's doing everything he can to prolong this dream come true.
Oh, you can forget about that one next time.
I was saying it's funny how there's a heat wave in London at the moment, And we've just had to come inside because it's rained, and I'm giving away my favorite rain jacket. I've traveled across the globe to give away my favorite rain jacket.
You're a good guy, man. I love what you're doing.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate the time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Eric. Pleasure to meet you.
Good chat with you.
And so, as I sat there watching the Sox fall behind on another drizzly promotion night under that famous scoreboard, I couldn't help but think baseball spins in circles. The White Sox, still the outsiders, still the underdogs. They always will be. They always were. But the South Side chooses belief, even in the bottom of the ninth with their backs against the wall. Because on the South Side, you don't root for the winners. You root for the ones who refuse to quit. And then suddenly, miraculously, as Zisk, Gamble, and Soderholm had done so often during that red-hot summer of 1977, the White Sox clawed their way back into the game. And there it was, a White Sox win on promotion night. Somewhere, Bill Veeck was smiling.
Thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, come join our community for free at Sideline.Archive.com. As always, these videos do cost a lot to make, so if you felt like becoming a patron, you can do that right there as well. Even $2 a month goes a long way to help us make more videos just like this. But until next time, peace.